Designing your own characters doesn't have to feel like rocket science. I've got 3 tips that will help you get started, so let's jump in. Hi there, my name is Emma Gillette, and I am a freelance illustrator, designer, and educator. Today I'm sharing my top 3 character design secrets that will help you get started designing animation-ready characters. In this video, you'll learn why doing the preparation work up front makes all the difference in creating a visually appealing characters, how to construct a character using basic shape language, and lastly, how to create contrast and visual interest using the principle of big, medium, and small. My first tip for you is to not skip all of the planning and prep work before you start drawing. Doing some planning and research goes a long way when it comes to successful design work. The 3 things that you should always do before you start drawing are: first, get to know your character; second, pick a target audience; and lastly, gather reference. Step 1, get to know your character. If there's one thing that you need to know about character design, it's that every choice, line, and color that you pick and make should all be in the service of one thing: story. Just as good and compelling animation tells a really interesting story, so does an effective character design. Taking the time to answer a few questions in the beginning of the process will help you make really important decisions later on in the process. Questions like, what kind of world does my character live in, and how do they fit in that world? What are their top 3 personality traits? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How does their arc play out in the story? Being able to imagine how your character will move and act throughout their world and story will arm you with the knowledge that you need to make really unique and interesting decisions in the design process. Number 2, pick a target audience. The next bit of planning you should always do is to pick a target audience. A target audience is just a group of people who are most likely to consume your product. Professional character designers are all able to adapt their styles to fit a wide range of genres and target audiences. A character in a kid's cartoon is going to look noticeably different than a character in a mature action-adventure video game. Bluey's simple shapes and bright complementary colors and exaggerated features are perfect for capturing the attention of a young child, while the dark, greedy realism in God of War is just dangerous and real enough to make you feel absorbed in the world. But take care to remember that simplistic doesn't always equal for children. Adult cartoons with their slapstick and irreverent humor wouldn't work half so well in a more realistic or rendered style. So when you're planning your character, ask yourself, who is most likely to connect with this character? What genders, ages, or subcultures are most likely going to watch whatever media that I would place my character design in? Who am I trying to target? Number 3, research and gather reference. Reference is an artist's best friend. Especially if you're designing a character from another culture or place or time, you're going to want to spend a little bit of extra time gathering and researching those places or time periods before you start the design process. Start a new Pinterest board and start gathering any photos, illustrations, color palettes, textiles, or really any other image that is inspiring to you and reminds you of your character. And hint, this is a really great time to also find other illustrations or character designs that fit in your target audience that you picked earlier. You can refer back to your inspiration board as little or as often as you want during the process of designing. An inspo board can also be really helpful with costuming and hair design elements. Why try to pull that stuff out of thin air when you have the entire world at your fingertips to refer to? My second tip for you is to design your characters from the ground up using basic shape language. Shape language is the secret language that every human knows. Your brain comes pre-programmed to see certain shapes as either dangerous, some shapes as safe, and others as stable. Every good character design is constructed out of basic shapes first. As you can see with these designs, each character has a very unique and specific shape chosen for their basic construction. These were not picked arbitrarily. They were picked while keeping basic shape language in mind to say a very specific thing about each character. You'll notice that Sadness is constructed mainly of circles and ovals, while Ralph from Wreck-It Ralph is a big wall of squares and rectangles. and Lord Shen comes to many points and triangles in his design. Circles and flowing lines typically represent peacefulness, softness, approachableness, harmlessness, or to be changeable or malleable, while squares typically tend to be interpreted as sturdy, strong, reliable, solid, or sometimes inflexible. And triangles can be interpreted as sharp, directional, dynamic, dangerous, and unpredictable. If you want to get really fancy, you can combine more than one shape into a single character design in order to convey either a hidden trait that the character is hiding, or an ability to change in their story arc, or just depth in their personality. Let's take a look at Ralph from Disney's Wreck-It Ralph. Ralph is a very interesting character, and his design perfectly explains his story just in a quick read. Ralph is the villain of his game, but the hero of our story. He needed to look intimidating and strong enough for us to believe that he could be the villain of his video game, but also soft and malleable enough for us to believe that he could change or grow as a character. His design uses all three shapes very effectively. Ralph is known for wrecking things, so he's a very strong and sturdy design, using mainly squares and rectangles for the bulk of his construction. The main shape in his design is a square, which represents that strength. Just look at how boxy his hands are. He's also a very stubborn character, which also lends well to the square. But we also know that Ralph is a softie, and he just wants to be loved and appreciated and welcomed into his community. So you can see in his facial features that there's a lot of roundness there, and most of the squares in his design are rounded off. And lastly, to convey the fact that he is the villain of his video game, he's given some edge to the spikiness in his hair and that big triangle on his chest. You can really tell that Ralph's character designer spent a lot of time thinking about Ralph's story arc and him as a multifaceted and three-dimensional character, and spent the time incorporating each facet of his character growth into the design. This is where tip number 1 comes in handy, because you'll only know these things if you actually spent the time getting to know your character first. I hope you learned a lot so far, and if you really want to learn the key to good illustration, check out Illustration for Motion, part of the school motion core curriculum. This course will teach you how to create beautiful illustrated works of art that you can use in your animated projects right away. Links are in the description. Okay, on to our third and final tip. Contrast is when two or more opposing elements are placed next to each other, and variety is just when there's a wide variety of elements present in a design. The human brain loves contrast, and the skilled designer knows that the more interesting and contrasting elements are in a design, the longer a viewer will tend to look at that design. And one of the easiest ways that you can add that contrast and variety is to use the principle of big, medium, and small. Demonstrating this principle is as easy as showing the difference between these two snowmen. Which snowman is the most visually appealing? The one on the right has a lot more visual interest than the one on the left. His 3 sections are all different sizes, big, medium, and small. Your eye moves organically across his form, from top to bottom and bottom to top, whereas the other snowman doesn't have any direction or flow. It's all the same and very boring. From simple to complex character designs, you can always break up a character into groupings of various sizes. These groupings start at the horizontal lines on your character design, typically falling at the bottom of the chin, at the neckline of the shirt, at the waist or at the hemline of their outfit, at their knees or the top of their shoes, and ending at their feet. Big, medium, and small can also be applied to the smaller and finer details of your design. It's really easy to add a little interest as you go. Basically, just try not to have any grouping of details or objects on your design that are all the same size. Utilizing big, medium, and small not only makes your design look more appealing and interesting as a still image, but gives the animator lots of fun elements to play with. So keep in mind how these proportions and details that you're adding into your design will allow them to move and act. Squidward from SpongeBob would lose a lot of his acting ability if his character designer had decided to swap the ratio of his torso to limbs. While this wasn't a comprehensive list of character design principles, these 3 tips will get you started making fun, appealing character designs that look great in motion. Drop a comment below and tell us what shows, movies, or video games have character designs that really stand out to you. And let us know what other character design topics you'd really like to see us cover. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can get more animation and design tips. See you next time.